Loud again. Okay, so the last time we met, we were discussing the topic of leaving the tchum as being one of the potential problems of setting sail in the days leading up to Shabbos. But we were up to the Ramah. I had to double check on YouTube. I had to make sure we were in the right place. But we're up to the Ramah in the middle of Sif Beis. Just to remind you a little bit again, let's read the Shulchan Aruch. I'm not going to read the Mishnah Berurah's comments. Let's read the Shulchan Aruch, so that leads into the Ramah's comments, so that it all comes together and makes sense. So let's just start from Beis, and we'll read from there. So it's Reish Mem Ches, Sif Beis. Everyone have that place? It's a 24 on the top of the page. You see it there, Mike? You got it? Yeah, exactly. So we'll start where it says Beis in the Shulchan Aruch. You have it, Tommy? Good. All right. Had ein mafligin. Okay, so the Shulchan Aruch says had ein mafligin bisfina pachos mishlosh yom kodem Shabbos hatam mishum onik Shabbos. Again, the reason for this whole prohibition, like the Rif wants to understand, is because of it ruins our ability to enjoy Shabbos in the most proper way. Shekol shlosha yamim harishonim yesh lahem saru bilbo. Those first 3 days, it sounds like you are very seasick, and even if you are going to end up spending Shabbos at sea, if you start on Monday, by the time you get to Saturday, I guess you have accustomed yourself to that feeling of swaying back and forth that may feel uncomfortable. What are we talking here? Dafka in the waters that are salty, which I think we discussed is probably the big bodies of water out there in the world, the ocean, the Mediterranean. Probably not talking about the Ohio River, as large as it may be. I don't think that's the intention here. But regular, I guess, rivers, there is no tsar that's caused from setting sail there. I guess the idea being that the more tumultuous waters are going to be the open, the large seas or oceans. That's where you're going to get some really difficult waves to deal with, things that are going to throw a boat around. Again, rivers can overflow, no doubt about it, but you're not going to get the wind. I see it here, again, having lived in Ohio versus living here. You see when you're at the coast, the wind can really sweep the water in a certain way, can really push the water in a certain way. That doesn't happen so much. You can get floods that cause the water to rise up in a place like Ohio, where it goes over the banks, but you don't get the push. Sometimes here, if you remember Sandy, Superstorm Sandy, right? There was one of the biggest causes of damage and destruction was really the fact that the wind pushed the water, ashore near the coast. And that's where there was a tremendous amount of damage. I know obviously there was also wind damage, but from the water, it was more, in that storm, it was about the water that was being pushed to the coast, as opposed to the storm we had here at the end of the summer, where suddenly from Shamayim, 10 inches of rain just dropped, on us. We all, many of us suffered the consequences of that. But again, that wasn't because, it wasn't because the river kind of pushing. That might be for, again, bigger bodies of water, I think, are more susceptible to that rocking back and forth, I guess. That's what's going on here. Therefore, to travel on the river is fine on even Erev Shabbos. Now, what's the condition of what's the one caveat? You have to know that there is at least a depth of 10 tefachim to the water between the bottom of the boat to the seabed. If there's a place that you know for sure that's not the case, if that's not true, then it would technically be prohibited because of an issue of tchum, because you would now be in a new space, in a new area. Though, as I was reading more and more yesterday in preparation for this in the Beis Yosef or Shulchan as well, I think the Mishnah Berurah at some point says this basically as well. The assumption is, unless you know otherwise, water is deeper than 36 inches. Right. The places where this may be relevant are really right next to, let's look at the beach. Right? When you start to go in, a certain way you go in, then at a certain point you'll get deeper than 3 feet. But at a certain point you're not. So sometimes people pull boats and right up against the beach, but that's like when you have like a sail, like a raft or something like that. Those big boats, you have to dock those with properly with the not in like 10 inches of water. So the reality is that you can assume this depth. It's not something that you have to start to really be concerned about. Okay, Rama adds here, and this is the new part. And furthermore, with a boat where there will be a necessity for the Jew to perform malacha on Shabbos. It is prohibited to enter into that situation 3 days prior to Shabbos. Again, leaving the door open. Again, the early part of the week, it would be okay, even though you know for sure that you'll end up having to violate malachos on Shabbos. Even if the rivers, here's the reason he's repeating this. Even if the rivers are calm, they're not the ones that are going to toss. It's not going to toss you around. So it's the Shulchan Aruch just said if it's just a river like that, okay, it's no big deal. But he's saying if you're going to have to do malacha because you're going to find yourself on that boat and you can't get yourself off that boat. Let's say you're traveling. I'm just being ridiculous now. You're traveling up the Hudson, and you're traveling up the Hudson, and now comes Friday night, and you're like, okay, how big is the Hudson? You can pull over to one of the sides, but can you really pull over to one of the sides? Because if you pull over to one of the sides, you're going to just also end up in forest. You have to end up being somewhere when you get off the boat. Getting off in the middle of the forest will still require you to be Mechalel Shabbos probably in order to survive. You're going to have to do things that you're going to probably have to create a fire to create anything warm, whatever it is. So you could end up on a river and still, even if you could pull off, you still may need to do malacha. So if you're going to put yourself in a situation where that will be necessary, it will still be prohibited, even though it's just a river. And even if that's lamala me'asarat, so you're not dealing with an isser or prohibition of tchum, it will not be allowed. Aval ein isser bameh shehabehemos moshchos hasfina b'sfas hanahar v'lo dami lahalicha b'karon she'aser. He says that there is no prohibition. So he says he's throwing a few more details in here. This is not really a fully continued thought from the previous sentence. But he's saying there is no prohibition if animals pull the boat from their animals are going along the bank of the river and they're pulling the boat which is in the river. That is not prohibited so long as other conditions are met. Or Shubash and Mishnah will explain. And it is not similar to the situation of a wagon, of a karon. There, it will be a problem, and we'll see the Mishnah will explain why, though maybe you're familiar with the problem of riding animals on Shabbos. What's the problem with riding an animal on Shabbos? Riding a horse on Shabbos, or riding a wagon that's being pulled by an animal.
Right, breaking off the twigs.
Excellent. Steve and Tommy both said it right now. Yeah, you're going to break off the branch from there's a gzeira. It's a rabbinic prohibition to ride on animals on Shabbos, lest you come to rip to take a branch off a tree in order to as a whip on the animal to move faster, to move this way, move that way. And as you're traveling through different places, you may pick to do that. So maybe the Chazal were concerned that you were going to not think, and you're going to take a stick off of the tree. That would be a prohibition on a biblical level. You're going to take the stick off of the tree and use it to whip the animal in order to get it to go, which not that I've actually ever been horseback riding, but from what I see on TV, they do use something to kind of get the horse to go. Okay, right. No, it's not just on TV. That's how they actually use. Okay, good. So they didn't have sophisticated things like I see in the equestrian, the horse jumping things. Now they use sticks. Okay. Okay. Let's look at the Mishnah Berurah, Tezayin, Yud Zayin, and Yud Ches. Tezayin, he says, Lidei Malacha. You can't put yourself in a situation where you're going to violate Malachos on Shabbos, even in a regular river, right? You're now I'm going to be stuck in the middle of the Hudson River up in, upstate New York, but not near Albany or something like that. Not near some city, upstate. I don't know if did the Hudson go through Albany? I don't remember, but you end up, somewhere where you can't really get off. So you can't put yourself in a situation if you're going to have to violate malachos. So maybe if you don't have to violate malacha, then it will be mutter. We'll see in a moment. That's Sif Gimel, which is going to be the heter for anyone who goes on a cruise on Shabbos. You're okay. Take a look here. Mishnah Berurah writes, "Afilu malacha derabbanan." You cannot put yourself in a situation where you'll even have to violate the rabbanans. On Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you should not put yourself in a situation where you might even have to. You will violate the rabbanon. If you might, it's the question we talked about. I might arrive on time, I might not. So if I might end up in a situation that may be okay. But if I know that I'm going to end up in a situation where I will violate rabbinic prohibitions, that is also not okay according to the Mishnah Berurah. Yud Zayin, likones b'shlosha yamim, getting on the 3 days or entering into this situation 3 days prior to Shabbos. Hatam. I'll remind you what do we write? What do we read in Sifkat on Ches? That's the whole Bal Hamor distinction of 3 days prior to Shabbos, as we were talking about a moment ago, belongs to the coming Shabbos. The first 3 days of the week belong to the previous Shabbos. So you have to be in a mindset and framework of thinking about that. And the reason he's right there, why should this apply on Monday? The answer is on Monday, I don't have to worry about this question. Even if it's a doraisa, I don't have to worry about the question. Again, which may be a chiddush in our brains, in our minds, but this is the halacha about boat travel, and you can extend it to other situations as well, where a situation again is unavoidable. My example that I gave a few weeks ago was elective surgery, where there will be a lot of follow-up, and sometimes there will be things that the doctor will have to do that are deoraisas, or the hospital may have to do to take care of you. That'll be deoraisas, or might have to do it yourself. If you do it on Monday, so that's okay. It's better to do an elective surgery where there will be a lot of follow-up. It's better to do it on a Monday or a Tuesday than on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There may be practical reasons why doctors don't like to do it at the end of the week as well, but definitely this is I think an outgrowth of this idea. Okay, Yud Ches. What's he talking about with this animal point, that the animals can pull the boat, even though on land animals cannot pull your wagon? So look what he says here. The im lo haya isur acher. If there are no, he says there, let me be very careful. There cannot be other prohibitions here. If there are no other prohibitions, kigon banaharos hanovim ulamala me'asar. So it's a calm river, higher than 10 tefachim. He says here, and there will be no requirement for malacha, meaning they'll be happy to let the boat just float, or do other things that don't require malacha. I mean, there could be other, it's nothing happening. I'm floating on the water. Ein le'esor lisa besfina hechash habehemos moshchos hasfina de'iyah doma ki'ilu yoshev bekarva habehema moshechas azad de'asot. Says there is no prohibition to travel on such a boat on Shabbos, where the animals are pulling the boat from the riverbank, even though it looks like it's like a wagon being pulled by animals, which that's not okay. So lo amrina hachli, we don't extend that thinking here. Why not? The hasam hatam shemayachtok zmora lahanhiga, because there you might pull a branch off the tree to drive the animals, sort of to lead the animals. Aval hacha habehemos holchos berachok beinenu. Here, that's not possible. The animals are on the sides of the river. They're walking on the side of the river, and I'm on the boat. So therefore, what could be the problem? Even though him 3 days, it's totally fine. We don't extend this decree in this situation because it's not even a possibility that I could pull a branch off the tree. Now, here's the problem with it. I know you're going to say, right? Who is the person who's going along the riverbank? Who's helping the animals go in the right direction? And I think it's absolutely a fair point. And if that is happening, then I think that the answer is it's a problem. So I don't know what situation an animal ever travels by itself on the riverbank. Is that even possible? You need some human beings to be doing that, I assume. Someone's got to be watching that the animal doesn't start going in a different. Yeah. So I'm not so sure how this is mutter. I also had that wonder, meaning I get the theory, in theory, why it's okay. You're gonna tell me why that the non-Jew is doing it, but that's the point is that's even Issa the Rabbanon. You said before you can't even do Issa the Rabbanans, setting that up. Then how could this be mutter? I don't know. I understand the theory. I'm not sure how in practice that plays out.
Well, does it assume that the passengers are all Jews or they're not Jewish passengers?
Well, so if there are Jews and non-Jews, then I don't need to do malacha.
Right. Well.
Right. So you're saying maybe that's what's happening here, meaning the non-Jew is the one who is leading the animals and the boat and right, and I'm just there. Right. So that's very possible. We're going to see that may be a very realistic possibility about how to be on a boat on Shabbos, is that they're not doing it for you. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Steve, do you have anything in your
I'm looking now, but I don't see. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I hear Tommy's point though. I hear maybe this whole thing is that the Jew, right? The Jew doesn't do malacha. So here you're saying that the person driving who's whipping the animal is the non-Jew, right? But they have to be doing it not for the Jew, right? It has to be get around the idea that they're doing it for you. It has to be some larger trip where there are Jews and non-Jews, and the person who's running the boat is like, I don't care. I'm doing my job is to take you from point A. Everyone's going from point A to point B. Yeah. But then why mention the animal example? And like here I'm saying, like technically it's mutter if if everything else is okay. It's okay if the animals are pulling it. But then it's I don't know. I'm not sure why. But then why would we say that if a non-Jew was leading a caravan on Shabbos, it was their job to whip I don't know. I'm not sure. We're going to come to the topic of traveling by land, so we'll get there soon. But okay, we'll leave that be. At least we understand the theory. Okay, Gimel. Let's go upstairs back in the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, here's where you can start to think about a cruise ship, and you'll think about your own. I have never been on a cruise before, but I know plenty of people that have, and so cruises are often, even kosher cruises, are over Shabbos. How could this be based on everything we've been talking about? It seems at least murky at best. How could that be? So take a look. So in Gimel, the Shulchan Aruch writes, Heicha de mutter lahaflig me'erev Shabbos im nichnas basfina me'erev Shabbos v'kana b'shvisa v'af al pi shemafleges b'Shabbos mutter v'hushal yotza me'asfina me'esh shekana shvisa. This is the opinion of the Bahag, the Baal Halachos Gedolos, from the period of the Gaonim, who says that when is it mutter to set sail on Erev Shabbos or on Erev Shabbos where you're going to be on the boat on Shabbos, is if you enter the boat, you enter onto the boat on Erev Shabbos, and you acquire shvisa there. You acquire that place to be like your home. You think about the idea of we don't do this so much today. I've never done it personally. I don't know if anybody myself personally who's ever done this, where you do an eruv tchumin. We do eruv chatzeros. That's what we have in this community as communities. But an eruv tchum is when you take some sort of food items, and you would go. Let's say you want to extend your range of travel on Shabbos, so you go to a place that is outside of. Let's say it's within the 2,000 amos. It's like let's say it's at 2,000 amos outside of my city. So that's as far as I could travel on Shabbos normally. And there happens to be a house there. So what do? I put my food there, I make a bracha, and I sort of acquire my ability, not acquire the house, but I acquire I'm basically saying, this is my place of residence on Shabbos. It's a bit of a, I don't say it's rabbinic fiction, but it's, you're acquiring this place as a place of living. So what am I allowed to do? I go back then to my normal house, and on Shabbos, I now can travel 4,000 amos, because I can go 2,000 amos to my acquired place, and now I have 2,000 amos from there. So an Eruv Tchum can extend my range of where I can go on Shabbos. This is discussed at length in Masechtas Eruvin. Something that we don't do practically speaking because it just doesn't make sense in our context of the way we live in our communities, and we have Eruv Chatzeros. It's not relevant. When you had small towns and you couldn't, a town was 2 blocks long, right? And then you talked about the next town was, X amount of, amos away. So this has made a lot more sense than maybe it makes in our heads now. But the principle is the same here, that if I go on the boat and I acquire that boat space as my living space, I acquire shvisa there, ability to dwell there. I do an Erev Shabbos. Even though the boat will take off, will set sail on Shabbos, it is mutter. What's the one condition that Tosos and the Rosh have, and the Rashba as well, within the Shita of the Shval Halachos Gedolos, is that you don't get off the boat. From the time that you acquire Shvisa, your living space there, you don't get off the boat. That's your place where you live. We're going to see in a moment, there's another opinion here. So this opinion, though, is that you cannot get off the boat. Once you get on the boat, Erev Shabbos, it can be 20 minutes before Shabbos, whatever it is. Even though the boat will leave, we'll leave the station, we'll leave the dock. On Shabbos, it's fine as long as you were on the boat before Shabbos and you acquired the place as your own. Now, there are a few things I'm going to point out that some of the Achronim point out, our Shulchan points it out, the Mishnah Berurah, I think, points it out. Certainly in the Beis Yosef, there's a big discussion about this. What's the point? If the whole thing is about extending a new tchum to yourself, don't we say that on the boat, it's lamala me'asara, it's higher than 10 tvachim, there should be no problem of tchum in the first place. So there are different approaches and answers taken here, which means that there's a lot of confusion about this. Why do it in the first place? Some say it relates to the fact, to the next opinion, which is if you get off the boat, you acquire your rights there, you get off the boat, and then you want to get back on the boat before the boat leaves on Shabbos, which is very realistic. Boats probably would not have set sail from the dock on Friday night, simply because they didn't have the kind of radar detection we have today to know which way to go. They didn't want to get themselves into murky waters, forgive the pun, at night. You might want to set sail during the day because that's a good time to leave and to make sure you're setting on the right course. So it could be that the boat will leave on Shabbos morning. Maybe you know that. Maybe the captain told you we're going to leave on Shabbos. We're going to leave Saturday morning when the sun comes out. So, but you don't want to spend the whole Friday night on the boat. You'd rather go back to your warm home, and you'll come back early, in the morning, and you'll be there. So that's going to be a possible second opinion here. So in order maybe to get off, to get back on, that may be a possibility why you make the kinyan. But in this opinion, you're not getting off. So why? So it could be that maybe when you get to where you're going, that making such an arrangement gives you the ability to get off the boat when if the boat arrives to a place where it's going on Shabbos, it may give you rights to getting off at that city and being able to go Alpayim Amma in that city, because otherwise, why should you be able to traverse the next city? You should be kind of stuck on the boat until Shabbos is over. And the other opinion that's stated here is that it's a little more symbolic, that it is not actually a sort of halachically accomplished something, but it's more symbolically says that I am here now, this is my space, and I'm acquiring, get this, I'm acquiring shvisa in the avir, in the atmosphere, meaning I have to acquire the atmospheric space about above 10 tvachim, and now I can traverse the entirety of that world. Someone's going to ask a clever question about an airplane now, because you could say the same svar about an airplane. Once you're up in the air before Shabbos, so long as it doesn't land, which is not realistic on Shabbos, then you can theory spend Shabbos in the air the entire time. Though you'd have to figure out a situation where someone's flying that plane for you. I don't know, but so there are different approaches you're taking. I'm being intellectually honest that this is a good question. There are different answers given, which probably shows you how good the question is, that there have to be at least 3 or 4 different approaches to try to solve the question. Okay.
As space travel gets more prevalent.
Correct. Yes.
It's going to be an issue. You go to the International Space Station and get off.
So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
And when is Shabbos anyway?
Yes, that's a big problem. That's always been in theory the question. When do you acknowledge Shabbos in space, given of course how
You follow the location you left from?
that's one of the answers that's given. The question has only been to this point theoretical. Unfortunately, it was almost, I don't know, again, there was the Israeli astronaut, unfortunately, who perished in that tragic it was coming back. I don't know if he had asked the question. I don't know if they were there for that long. I don't remember right now. The story was what was his name again? Ilan Ramon. I don't remember how long he was in space for. I know it was when they're coming back that tragedy happened. I don't recall if there was any Shabbos, issue there, if he was not Shomer Shabbat per se. I don't know. But it will become a question, and no question that it will be one of the answers will be, that's why you shouldn't travel to space. Okay. Yes, right, exactly. Okay. Where are we here? Let's read the Mishnah Berurah Yud Tes Chaf and Chaf Aleph. Heicha da mutar v'chulei perish da mechaber lo ka'amar le'ele hatir afilu ben haros hanovim l'lamala me'asar ele hafli be'erev Shabbos aval b'Shabbos lo. Until now, the Shulchan Aruch has been talking about the only heter, I should say, was you could travel on the calm rivers, the calm waters, and it has to be above 10 tefachim to set sail on Erev Shabbos. Not on Shabbos. You can't leave on Shabbos. It would have to be leaving Erev Shabbos on these kind of calmer rivers. But now, the Khan Asi Le'oruye, now the Shulchan Aruch is coming to rule and to teach us that there are times that af b'Shabbos, that even if the boat leaves on Shabbos, mutar lahaflik b'hem. That's what's happening now. We're learning that there are actually situations where leaving on Shabbos could still be mutar. Funny discussion that comes out of this that the Aruch HaShulchan mentions, and that there's a further discussion Shlomo Auerbach talks about. I'm not going to read the whole thing here. But there's another Isser we'll get to when we get to Siman Shin Zayin, which is called the Isser of Daber Davar. That there are the things that we talk about on Shabbos should be appropriate to Shabbos. How do we define what's appropriate to Shabbos? Things that are mutar on Shabbos. Generally speaking, you're not supposed to talk about the stock market, in terms of like, I'm going to, on Monday, right? On Monday, I'm going to invest in. I think to talk about the past tense is a little bit different. What's happened in the world. But say I'm going to talk about Monday. I see my business partner in Shul on Shabbos, and I say to them, Monday, I think we should sell short this, this stock, and we should take this position. You're not supposed to talk business on Shabbos. Okay, not surprising that that's a thing you're not supposed to do. Whether that happens out there, I'm going to leave that aside. But you're not supposed to talk about your business on Shabbos or with your partner or this, or even not with your partner. It's like, I want to invest in this. I want to invest in that. I'm in business. I take my business, do this with my business this coming week. Probably not supposed to talk about things like that. But what are you allowed to talk about? You're allowed to talk about this, apparently. If it's mutar to leave on a boat on Shabbos in certain circumstances, which would mean you could travel from Mokom X to Mokom Y, then theoretically it is okay to talk about travel on Shabbos. Right? Now you're not actually doing the travel, but he says here, the Aruch HaShulchan says, therefore, because of this, shemutar ledaber b'Shabbos al haflaga b'sfina. Ve'ein bazeh mishum isur daber davar. You don't have this in front of you. But he says that there's no Isser, because if I'm allowed to do it on Shabbos, it's okay. And he says, closer Shlomo Orbach here, Shemuter la'adam lomar betachniso shetach shebetachniso linsoa b'makom she'efshar lahagia la'elav b'sfina. If I could get there by boat, theoretically, I could talk about it. Afal pisha b'skaven linsoa sham b'mechonis. I'm going to travel in a car, going b'mechonit or b'rakevet on the train. I'm not going to actually take a boat there, but since I could theoretically travel there to this place by ways that were technically mutter on Shabbos, he says there's no problem in talking about, oh yeah, I'm going to be traveling to from here to Boston because I could take a boat, around the Sound all the way up to the harbor in Boston. So I could talk about taking the train to Boston.
Can't do that for Columbus.
Correct. That's what he talks about. What happens if you can't get there? I was like, I don't want to talk about this. It's too complicated. He starts going into, but technically you could bike there, and biking is mutter. But what do you do now that we basically prohibited biking? It's a little too much for my whatever. Bottom line is here, the Aruch HaShulchan says that okay, once something is mutter, you can always talk about it on Shabbos. It's nothing to talk about, even though it should feel like it's wrong. Anyways, I thought it was interesting that came up. Let's look at Chaf in the Mishnah Berurah. Shvisa. Ainu sheyashav sham. Kol bein hashmashos ad shetechsha. It's a very short Mishnah Berurah here, but it's actually a very important concept that applies to many areas on Shabbos, which is that in order to acquire that place as mine, how do I call my Kona Shvisa? So I talked about one way is you could do an Erev Chatzeros. Excuse me, an Erev Tchum. The other way you could do that is by simply being there through Bein HaShmashos, which means the beginning of Shabbos. But we don't know when the moment of Shabbos starts. It's a suffix in the definition of the halachic day. When does the halachic day start? It could be any time we talk about from sunset till Teisach Kochavim. But we don't know when that precise moment is. There's an interesting, fascinating discussion in the Gemara about that. In fact, in this year we did this. If you think back, we went through the sugya in Masechah Shabbos. Shabbos? I don't know. I think it's the Shabbos. But when we were discussing the earliest time that you could say Kriya Shema, which depends on how you define what is Teisach Kochavim. And we're machmir to say something much later than probably what actually the Gemara defines as Teisach Kochavim. So if you are on the boat at the beginning of Shabbos, which means from sunset until Teisach Kochavim, so that way for sure you were there at the beginning of Shabbos, that's another way you're showing that this is my place of, this is a place of dwelling relevant to me for Shabbos. And so therefore I am Kona Shvisa there. This is also an important halacha that as it relates to muktzah. The laws of muktzah become relevant, or muktzah is not the right term, but things that are an example of this. If you have Shabbos candles, you light the candles. There's usually a plate underneath your candles, right? Like a fancy, nice plate. What happens to that plate? The plate also becomes, by extension, the candlesticks you can't really move them for the entirety of Shabbos because they are a basis l'davar ha'asur. They are the thing that holds something that, namely the fire, that is asur on Shabbos, right? The fire is asur, I can light it before Shabbos, but it's a basis. When is the time that things become sort of locked into their status? It's at Bein HaShmashos. So yes, even though the flame might burn out by 9, 10 o'clock at night, so they say, why is it a problem now for me to use the thing underneath? Because when Shabbos comes in, during the Bein HaShmashos period, it gets locked in. Bein HaShmashos locks in certain things during Shabbos for halachic purposes. We'll see in a few weeks when we start to get to things about food discussions. Bein HaShmashos is very key for food discussions. If something is already in a certain circumstance, Bein HaShmashos, let's say you have all your food. This is one of the hetters that was before there was a warming tray. This idea of the warming tray. You had all your food out on a blech before Shabbos during Bein HaShmashos, and then you took it off, and Bein HaShmashos comes and goes, and I put it back in my refrigerator So I can heat. There's no problem at all in heating that food up on the blech the next day. It was the cool that the Rav Soloveitchik relied upon, which was mentioned in the Ramah. Today we circumvent that. We have this warming tray, and you put the food on there, and it never cooks, and never a possibility to cook. But before they had these things that you plugged in, how did you heat food up? You used the fire from the oven. You put a blech on it, but that was still a fire that you used to cook. The warming tray is mutter today because you don't cook on that thing. If it doesn't look like something you cook, so you can just put it right on there, even if it wasn't sitting on it on Erev Shabbos. But the Bein Hashmashos thing is a big factor when it comes to Hilchot Shabbos, and it sort of locks it into a certain status. And again, it will become more clear in the foods when we start to talk about the foods. I think it's Reish Nun Beis. So start talking about the food on Erev Shabbos, how this principle plays out. But when Shabbos starts, if you are there, then it's your place of dwelling. Chaf Aleph, V'hu shelo yatsa, the ilam hachi asar likanes ba b'Shabbos mipnei shenira keshat al pnei hamayim is the asar Moshe Kosev 7 Shin Lamed Tes. Why can I not get off? Why can I not get off from the time that I'm Kodesh Visa? Because if I don't, the ilam hachi, if I don't, then it's prohibited to get back on the boat on Shabbos. Why can I not get off? Because I can't get on Shabbos. He says because it looks like I am swimming on the water. You say, why would it look like I'm swimming? I'm on the boat. Again, maybe you're imagining only a cruise ship right now, but not every boat is high in the water. Some are obviously very low to the water where you could reach your hand out and you can touch the water literally with your hands. And it's prohibited to swim on Shabbos. What is going on here? So why is it prohibited to swim on Shabbos? Let me be very clear about why it's prohibited. It's an Issur D'Rabbanan to swim on Shabbos. It's not an Issur D'Oraisa per se. Maybe it could be, you could turn into that, but the fear was, the Gezerah is, because you may create almost like a kickboard out of wood. You're going to take you're going to pull things off of trees, or you're going to fashion them also. That's not even a raft. You're going to, oh, good. Think about like a raft. Thank you. Where you, something called shayatin. I'm forgetting the term here. You go to Shin Lamed Tes, you see it. Sorry. He says here, what is it? Here. You're going to make a thing that people use to float in the water, right? So not a kickboard, probably like a raft, like a wooden raft. And so the fear was you were going to make something that would require malacha d'oraisa to make that little wooden raft, whatever. You're going to take some wood and you're going to put it together. So that will be prohibited on Shabbos. So they said that you shouldn't swim because you're going to put yourself in a situation similar to violating that you're not supposed to play a musical instrument on Shabbos because why? So Issur D'Rabbanan to play a musical instrument on Shabbos because you might fix the musical instrument if it were to break on Shabbos. And fixing it would be Tikkun Maneh, which is an Issur D'Oraisa. So you have here again the fear of something being the reason for the Gezerah, but here you have a bit of an extension of it because it appears, it looks like you're swimming. Maybe because you're putting the oar into the water, or because so you can have certain boats where you're engaging yourself with the water and not just simply you're up on the top of the cruise ship. So I'm just merely the reporter here, what's happening. And so that's the fear why going on the boat on Shabbos is a problem. It should be, I want to note that one of the Bali Atosos said that it's totally usur to even get on the boat Erev Shabbos because of this. Because if you're on the boat on Shabbos, he thinks it's never okay. We don't, clearly the Shulchan Aruch doesn't paskin like that opinion, but you see, and this was his reason, because it looks like you're swimming. But that does play out here, at least according to this opinion, on Shabbos. You can't get on Shabbos because of that Zera D'Rabbanan. I'm going to stop here because I realize I just went way over my own time. It's 8:45 to get to school. But we'll look at the Ramah next time. The Ramah cites a few other opinions about this issue about traveling on a boat on Shabbos, some which are more lenient than even the Shulchan Aruch's opinion, which will allow you to even get on the boat on Shabbos. On Shabbos, so long as you were Kodesh Visa prior to Shabbos, which will be an interesting case like I talked about before, where you get on before you get on during Bein Hashmashos, You begin Shabbos on the boat, you get off the boat, sleep in your home, get back on the next morning before they set sail. That, according to one opinion, is going to be mutter. And then we'll share where we fall out minhag wise on this whole question.
Let's go. Sorry,
Okay,
everyone.
very good, everybody. Take care.
I put a